It's diabolically clever, Mr. Orwell. You do see the ramifications of it, don't you?
Huh?
There's no telling how big this thing is.
That's a ramification, Leslie?
Gail may not be the only one. There's no telling how many students have been victimized.
Before you go international, let's take a look at Gail's problem.
I live with my grandfather.
What does he do for a living?
Well, he's retired. He owns a little farm off Ventura Boulevard, and he sells fruits and vegetables from a roadside stand, and I really don't think this is getting us anywhere.
Could the bills have come from him?
Really, Mr. Orwell, I mean, not so far out. I can't believe you're serious.
No, what I really meant was maybe somebody passed them to him when he was making change.
Oh. Well, yeah, I guess that could have happened, yeah. He's a pretty old man, and his eyes aren't as good as... Well, I'll tell him to check the bills more closely.
You know, that's a good idea, because he ought to be able to spot them if anybody can.
Why?
Well, Gail told me this morning he used to be a lithographer.
That's a ramification.
Hi, this is Stephanie Powers. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson and author guest Les Lannom. Les Lannom, the actor known around the world as Lester Hodges on Harry O. Les wrote the foreword to the Harry O. Companion by Steve Aldous and Gary Gillies, an excellent book that you can find right now at Amazon.com as well as McFarlandPub.com. Les's career in movies and television spans 5 decades. He's been sharing a few memories with us today. As we went to break, Les was about to talk about one of the traits that he shared with David Janssen and which he believed helped him bond with David Janssen, a self-deprecating sense of humor.
One of the characteristics that I have that David shared and that David, I think, found value in was my ability to laugh at myself. I don't mind, and I was the butt of so many of his little jibes and jokes, and he took great delight in it. I mean, there were times when he'd say, I can't work with this guy again. Hire a trained dog next time, you know.
Well, at the same time, Jerry Thorpe told me, when I talked to him many years ago, that one of the reasons why he brought you back, because you did the first pilot and then you did the first episode filmed in San Diego.
And then they wrote 4.
They wrote 4 for you when they brought the show back to L.A. and retooled the format. And Jerry Thorpe told me that one of the things they wanted to do when they retooled the show is they wanted to tap into David's sense of humor more. And one of the reasons, Jerry specifically mentioned you by name because he liked the report. He particularly liked the chemistry between the two of you when you did the San Diego episode with Julie Summers.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that set it up. And they wrote Lester based on that character. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure why they named him Lester. They may have thought that I was that I lacked the acumen to remember another name. But I had, for probably the only time in my life, I exercised good judgment and did not say, no, my name is Leslie. Les is short for Leslie, not Lester. But, I exercised a little forbearance in that and did not embarrass myself too much. But I was never completely sure why or who it was who was most influential in bringing me back. Steve Aldous said that he had spoken to Bob Dozier. And Bob Dozier, or I think he said he spoke to him, but anyway, Bob Dozier had said that he thought that they should bring me back as a kind of a counterpoint to tap into David's natural sense of humor. And David had a great sense of humor. Mm-hmm. He really did. And every day that we worked, it's funny, we must have laughed all day long.
Yeah.
Off and on, all day long. And Margaret, I do not know Margaret's last name. I never did know her last name. But she was the script supervisor.
Program note, the script supervisor on Harry O. was Margaret Varian.
And Margaret and I were talking once. I said, the thing that really, really stands out in my mind about David and that I really appreciate greatly is the fact that he was always there for my close-ups. I said, a lot of stars, I said, and I've worked with them. I've worked with a few who you would be there. They would do the master shot. They'd do the over the shoulders, the close-ups. But and they would do the over shoulders for them, or well, they would be there for that. But when it came time for the close-ups, they would do their close-ups, all of them, and then they would get in their car and they would go home. And you would do your close-ups. Hopefully, you had you remembered what they did and how you reacted to what they did, because you would be reading with a script supervisor and looking at an X or a dot or whatever on a piece of whiteboard. And that's not quite as easy as it might seem, but David is always there for my close-ups. I said he could go home. I know he could go home, but he never did. She said, Les, David's not that way for everybody. I said, no. She said, no. If David didn't, she said that every time we'd be getting ready for one of your shows, she said David would brighten up and just smiling all day long. She said when he knew you were going to be on the lot and going to come over and say hello, he would brighten up. She said if he didn't like somebody, if he worked with them and they were kind of a pain in the butt, he would say, "You work with this," and he would leave.
Yeah.
Or he would get frustrated and drink to the point that he couldn't function well.
Yeah.
And then he'd go home.
Well, I know from both my conversations with Steve and Gary and from what I've learned about the show through my other research that there are a lot of times, particularly by the time the show changed production in L.A., where the concept of the show changed considerably, and that kind of wore him down, David, and they wore David down a little bit. And so that my understanding that sometimes that had an effect on whether he was up for a show or down for a show. But the fact that they
started writing, they started playing to his strong suit, and that was his wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah.
They started doing that much more in L.A. because Anthony Zerbe, was so good at playing off of him.
Yes.
And Henry Darrell, a good actor and a very sweet man, a very, very nice man. He did not have quite the same rapport with David that Tony did. And David, when they were tooling up for me to do the pilot.
That being The Mysterious Case of Lester and Dr. Fong, the backdoor pilot that Les and I referred to earlier in our conversation, also featuring Key Luke.
And I said, well, I don't know if I'm ready to do my own show. I'd rather come in here again, just continue as either recurring or work in, ideally for me, work in as a regular with working with you. He said, you don't know. You need your own show. He said, you don't need to be anybody's second banana. And then he talked about Clu Gallagher and that Clu had backed out. Clu was originally he
was going to be the Henry Darrow in a sense.
He was the foil, yeah. He was the policeman foil.
Yeah.
And he said that he dropped out before they did Gertrude, before they did the first episode, because he didn't want to be anybody's second banana. He didn't want to, because he had a thriving career going, and he didn't want to do that. Well, Henry was accustomed to being a peripheral character, or from Big Valley and other things that he had done. He was a nice man, and a good actor, but it just didn't quite have the snap that they wanted. And when they moved up to San Diego, it didn't make sense to bring Henry, who had been to bring both up from San Diego. Tony was a very stolid actor on his own, and he had done a lot of shows where he had been the antagonist on them, and this time he was a protagonist, but at the same time was sort of between David's character, between Harry Orwell and Lieutenant Trench, and especially the fact that Orwell had been a cop, and Trench said, I can't believe that you would get yourself into such a mess like this. How did you do that? And why? And they really had this kind of friendly, and sometimes not so friendly, push-pull kind of relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't really antagonistic, but it wasn't exactly what you would call a love affair.
Yeah, Zerby described it to me as a symbiotic relationship. They needed each other. To quote from Jerry Maguire, in a way they completed each other, even though they were diametrically opposite personalities, but they had a mutual respect for each other as professionals.
It's funny you would put it that way. I studied hypnotherapy out in Los Angeles for about a good solid year, and I became a certified hypnotherapist. There are people who will tell you that I've been certifiable for a long time. But one of the things in relationships is that opposites do attract.
Yeah.
We are inexplicably and subliminally drawn to people who have characteristics that we lack in our own personalities and own skill set or whatever. And we're drawn together because both parties recognize that. And that's it true in romantic relationships and otherwise. We just, so they wrote that into the script, and it worked beautifully with David and Tony. And the few times that I worked with Tony in scenes where I was sort of the protagonist, or I was the burr under his saddle.
And we'll pick up on that thread when we play part 2 of our conversation with Les Lannom next week on TV Confidential. Les will share more memories of working with David Janssen and Anthony Zerby on Harry O. We'll also talk about some of Les's other movie and TV roles, including working with Lee Marvin and Gene Hackman in Prime Cut, with James Garner in the miniseries Space, and with Peter Falk on Columbo. Part 2 of our conversation with Les Lannom next week on TV Confidential. You can follow Les Lannom on Facebook, The Harry O Companion by Steve Aldous and Gary Gillies, available Amazon.com as well as McFarlandPub.com. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hi, this is Lawrence Fleckerbill. You are listening to TV Confidential.
Yes, I believe that there is such a thing as heaven.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
Angels flying around, about 12 angels.
Just like New York, Chicago, Miami, it's a city.
It's like all white. You're just kind of alone in this bright white place eating marshmallows.
We are going to have an orgasm that you can't even comprehend. There is sex, but it is automatic.
Ed Roberts with a reminder that the next edition of TV Confidential will premiere next week on the station at the usual time. We'll play part 2 of our conversation with Les Lannom. Plus, we'll welcome back Mitchell Hadley, author of Darkness in Primetime. In the meantime, we have a few minutes left this week. Enough time to tell you that our friends at Lightyear Entertainment will re-release Heaven, the critically acclaimed documentary that also marked the directorial debut of Academy Award-winning actress Diane Keaton. Lightyear Entertainment will re-release Heaven in select theaters and via virtual cinema on Friday, November 14th. Originally released in 1987, Heaven is a freewheeling and decidedly offbeat pastiche of film clips, song clips, and original interviews by Diane Keaton that all explore different ideas of what paradise may have to offer. Diane Keaton, of course, passed away earlier in 2025. The documentary explored and captured her longtime curiosity about the afterlife, posing such questions as, what kind of rewards do you think heaven holds? What does God look like? And is there sex in heaven? Heaven, the acclaimed feature-length documentary, directed by Diane Keaton, now meticulously remastered in HD, for re-release in theaters and via virtual cinema beginning Friday, November 14th.
From somewhere in the South Pacific, we present the Bob Hope Show.
Also want to tell you about Hollywood Goes to War. Hollywood Goes to War, the news exhibit at the Hollywood Museum. Hollywood Goes to War pays tribute to the entertainment community's influence during World War II through a variety of films and stories depicting World War II battles and home front stories, all designed to boost the morale of families and soldiers statewide and, of course, the morale of the troops stationed overseas. The Hollywood Museum is located at 1660 North Highland Avenue at Hollywood Boulevard in the famous Max Factor building. Tickets and more information, thehollywoodmuseum.com. Ed Robertson, Beth, Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, Phil Grace, and Susan Silver. Thank you so much for listening. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk to you next time on TV Confidential.